City regular meeting for February 19th, 2019 to order. Excuse me. Birthday man Marn will give the invocation.
Oh, boy.
I know. Still here to see it, right? Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almost did it. Call the roll, Julie.
Mr. Marne?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Mrs. Dowling?
Here.
Mr. Kirchner?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Landig?
Here.
Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of February 5th, 2019.
Move to approve?
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes. Sorry.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
And we now have a presentation by Ben Capelli, Chief Executive Officer of Lake Tran. Ben, I saw you on the way in. Please.
I'm Ben Capel from Lake Tran. I came today, sorry, I was going to be here last week, but my schedule got messed up, so sorry about that. But I came today to let you know that on, well, hopefully you already know, but to let you know that on January 28th, we started service along Tyler Boulevard using our Commuter Express buses. So what we did was basically, most of you are familiar with a typical park and ride bus. Picks up at the Mentor Park and Ride, takes people downtown Cleveland, drops them off, comes back. What we used to do is we used to come back, just straight back to the garage. What we changed is now the buses go to downtown Cleveland. There's a total of 64 bus stops downtown. And when they come back this direction, they drive down Tyler Boulevard so that if people are in the Cuyahoga County, City of Cleveland area, they can get to jobs on Tyler Boulevard. We spent most of 2018 talking to manufacturers on Tyler Boulevard, talking to employment agencies, and talking about employment gaps and the transportation difficulties people had getting to those. One of the things we thought was interesting is over 50% of those gaps were identified as first shift positions, which is a time of day that we don't have too much difficulty serving. So what we kind of envision is this is sort of the first step to better transit service on Tyler Boulevard. Main reason we picked this service is because it didn't have any additional cost to us. So we already have had pretty good results. We were a little nervous that people might not want to ride it at first, but I think we've done about almost 700 trips since we started, which is a lot more than we expected. It's about 30 a day, which is quite a bit higher than we expected, especially for the first month. It takes people time to learn how things work and how it goes. But we've been very happy, and I kind of just wanted to come and answer any questions you might have, or just kind of have any kind of discussion or thoughts you had about Lake Tran. But the other thing I want to say though is this is not a short-term project for us. Transit service typically takes about 3 years to really become accepted and function. So our providing service at Tyler Boulevard is a long-term plan for us. It's not buses here for a couple months and then we're going to take them off. So we've been just kind of trying to get out and spread the word and make sure everyone is aware of the service so they can start hopefully getting employees to work using the bus.
Mr. Landy?
Yeah, just to clarify, Ben, so you're saying that a bus that previously came back vacant from Cleveland now has 30 people per day?
Yeah, there's 6 trips in the morning and 6 at night, so it's basically average of 5 people right now per bus.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, correct. They previously had no people on them.
Thank you.
Mr. President? Dowling?
And you are reaching out to them through their mentor employers? That's how they are finding out about the service?
Yes, most of our outreach has been focused on either the temporary agencies that work directly with the manufacturers, or we've had a lot of communication with the actual manufacturers themselves. So we have staff that will go out to their facility and explain to them how the bus works, what trips they can take, and really make sure they understand what services are available and how it can help them. There are programs they can take advantage of where they can sell their employees transit passes pre-tax. So depending on what program the employer wants to set up, there are choices about how they can integrate with us. And we'll go as far as our staff will ride with a person for the first day. You know, a lot of times, one of the barriers to transit is understanding how it works and sort of that apprehension about, am I going to stand on the curb and, be left out in the cold? So we will go as far as we need to get people to understand the service and help them use it.
That's wonderful. Thank
So-
you.
Mr. Blake?
Yeah, what's the fare per each way on this? I mean, somebody coming from Cleveland, they come out to Mentor, and then they get, I guess they stay on the bus and they go up Tyler. What's the fare on that? How much does that cost?
So a fare for a one-way trip on our park and ride service is $375.
Wow, that's great. All the way from Cleveland
Yeah,
up Tyler Boulevard is $375?
correct.
Wow, you couldn't drive it for that cheap.
You can't.
No.
Couldn't drive it for that cheap.
Mr.
That's
Belichick?
great.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to append to some of the things that Mr. Capel said. This has actually been something that's in process before Mr. Capel even joined Lake Tran when I chaired the board. Discussions about this for several years, so it does take some time for this to get in action. But I will tell you from all of the, and I've related this to obviously several other members of council, one of our biggest problems that we face out there, particularly in our large manufacturing sector, fifth in the state of Ohio, is workforce development. So we have joined with Lake Tran. I signed a joint letter, I think it was under Ben's signature as well, that went out to all the manufacturers that were up and down Tyler Boulevard over to Heisley to let them know that the service is going to be there. So I am very hopeful that you're going to see additional recruitment of potential workers for these various companies that need workers very badly from Cleveland, from East Cleveland, from other places in Cuyahoga County, which will take advantage of this service to bring them out to work here in Mentor.
Thank you. Ben, thank you very much.
No problem. I have some folders with me that I'll leave with Ken if you want more Lake Train information. It has my business card in it. If you have any follow-up questions or want to talk more about buses, I could talk about buses for hours. So,
You know what I'm
Yes,
looking
you
for,
can.
right? You know what I'm looking for,
Yes,
right?
I do know what you're
Okay,
looking
all
for.
right, Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Ben.
Thank you.
Public hearings, we have none. Table legislation, none. New legislation, ordinance number 19-0-011.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to A&J Cement Contractors, Inc. for the sidewalk repair pedestrian safety program Zone 4B and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for Zone 4B work that was failed to be performed by the residents. Mr. Swigger.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. 5 bids were opened on February 1st for the sidewalk repair and pedestrian safety program, Zone 4B. And that zone is basically bounded by Lakeshore Boulevard, Hendricks Road, Blackbrook Golf Course, and Veterans Park. Bids received for the project range from a low bid of $247,376.25 to a high bid of $462,037.50. And the engineer's estimate for the work was $280,000. The low bid was received by A&J Cement Contractors of Euclid, Ohio, whose bid was found to be in conformance with all contract requirements. It's therefore recommended that the contract be awarded to A&J Cement Contractors in the amount of $247,376.25. It's anticipated the work will begin in May with the project completion date specified for August 16th, 2019. I did want to mention that we have revised our bid specs this year to minimize the time it takes for a contractor to repair sprinkler heads, which were given 7 days, and there's also a penalty of $50 per day if that's not performed, as well as minimizing the amount of time that a sidewalk slab can be removed before it's being replaced, and that's been specified as 2 weeks at a $100 per day liquidated damages as well. Thank you.
Council, your pleasure.
Second?
Julie?
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Second?
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-011 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-012.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to Chagrin Valley Paving for Contract A and alternates 1, 2, and 3 of the 2019 road repair program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and this is our road program, our neighborhood road program for the year. The thing that is, I think, noteworthy in this is the first alternate, of course, is our cooperative agreement that we've done for the last few years with Men Around the Lake. It's an advantage to them and to us, to enhancing the size of the project. That's worked out well, and they've been a good partner in that. And of course, the second alternate is reconsideration of our original thinking on the future phases for the Headlands Road Rehabilitation Project. So Glen Lodge Road and Wake Robin will also be, it's a fairly large addition to our asphalt contract, but it's a far cry from the total reconstruction that we're seeing on Marigold and the like. So, Mr. Swigger.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. 5 bids were opened on Friday, February 1st for the 2019 road repair program. The project will provide asphalt paving, resurfacing on 19 city streets. The streets included in this year's program include portions of Birchwood Drive, Burr Ridge Avenue, Butternut Lane, Carlton Court, Cross Street, Glen Lodge Road, Green Valley Drive, Grovewood Drive, Harley Lane, Iroquois Trail, King Memorial Road, Laurie Place, Mary Lane, Parker Drive, Rockingham Road, Rosebud Drive, Seneca Trail, Wake Robin Road, and Winfield Drive. The bid package consisted of a base bid and 3 alternates. 2 were related to paving, 1 was for catch basin repair. The 5 bids received for the base bid and the alternates range from a low bid of approximately $1.3 million to a high bid of approximately $1.6 million. It was determined that Chagrin Valley Paving of Chagrin Falls, Ohio submitted the lowest bid and alternate totaling $1,327,562.43. And the engineer's estimate of the work was $1,450,700. It's recommended that the contract be awarded to Chagrin Valley Paving, who's qualified to perform the work. Thank you.
Counsel,
Move to suspend. Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-012 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-013.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to A&J Cement Contractors, Inc. for Contract B and alternates 1, 2, and 3 for the 2019 road repair program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. This is the concrete portion of the work under our road program this year, and similar to the last ordinance under the asphalt agreement. Alternate 1 is for work in Men Around the Lake, and then the other 2, one of the alternates also applies to catch basins. The second alternate is just for additional work in the event that we receive a favorable bid. Mr. Swigger?
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. 4 bids were open on Friday, February 1st for Contract B of the road repair program. The project will provide for full-depth concrete repairs to portions of 12 city streets. These streets include Belvedere Drive, Blue Jay Lane, Brambleside Lane, Doral Drive, Gatewood Drive, Hackberry Drive, Hoover Drive, Ohio Street, Polk Court, Ridgeside Drive, Sunnyvale Court, and Woodbury Court. Quantities bid under alternate 1 will be utilized for work within Men Around the Lake. The quantities within alternate 2 will allow for additional work. Quantities for alternate 3 are for catch basin repairs. The bid package consisted of a base bid and the 3 alternates. The 4 bids received range from a low bid of $620,165 to a high bid of $1,035,450. It's been determined that AJ Cement Contractors of Euclid, Ohio submitted the lowest total bid of $620,165. It's recommended that a contract be awarded to them in that amount. Thank you.
Counsel, what's your pleasure?
Move to suspend. Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake? Yes. Mr. Donovan? Yes. Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-013 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-014.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements with the City of Mentor-on-the-Lake for the 2019 road repair program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not much to add here. This is this identical agreement to what we've passed the last couple of years, and again, it's been a good relationship.
Council.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-014 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-015.
An ordinance to authorize advances of funds and revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malinowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Members of council, this ordinance primarily provides the temporary cash needs and appropriate revisions to the appropriations for the ordinances that you just passed. And then there are several other grant-related and miscellaneous appropriations that are also noted in the staff memo. I would recommend approval. Thank you.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-015 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-016.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to perform all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council 2019 Energized Community Grants Funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. As council is aware, Mentor is a part of a very large aggregation group that purchases power on the generating power on the open market for, in our case, our residents who choose to participate in that program. Last year and this year, NOPEC as an organization has agreed to make available to all member communities grants from their fund reserves to be utilized for energy efficient capital improvements within those communities. Last year, we received about $173,000. This year, it's just a little bit less, but not too much, and not quite $165,000. Our public works superintendent, Mr. Vernon here, is going to tell you a little bit about how we plan on using some of that money.
Last year, we plan on replacing all of the parking light heads in all of city parks and facilities. We also, going forward, we're going to be replacing all the LED lighting, all the lighting in the senior center and many of our buildings.
Thank you.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-016 is passed. Second reading, we have none. Third reading, we have none. Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have one pavement open cut request from Aqua, Ohio. The city engineer has looked closely at this and believes that it's probably the only way to achieve their replacement of 849 feet of water main on Murray Avenue. There are 3 open cuts related to this, one 4x4, one 3x3, and one 2x2 location. So ask for
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. In some other business, first of all, happy birthday, Councilman Marne.
Thank you.
Also want to, this is the first chance we've really had to congratulate the retirement of, and acknowledge the retirement of Deputy Chief Joe Busher, who served our community for just over 32 years. His last day of service, I think, was the 31st, or was that right, Chief? Of January?
Yes, yes, and we had a nice farewell for him, and I want to thank councilpersons for attending that. Thank you.
So Mr. Busher is now the director of the Lake County Emergency Management Agency, so we'll be working with him going forward, and we're actually thrilled to have him over there. We've always had a good working relationship with the county EMA, and that's only likely to get better. Couple of events to announce. We have a new event in town beginning on Saturday, well, a one-day event on Saturday, February 23rd, the inaugural Mentor Chill Out Day. It's a winter outdoor festival, and Mr. Kaminsky is going to tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Yes, it is this Saturday, the 23rd, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Even though there isn't snow on the ground, it's still going to be a great event. There's ice carving that's going to be happening all day. We actually have a gold medalist winner, if you weren't aware that ice carving is a Olympic sport. Aaron Kostick from Elegant Ice will be here working on the ice. The neat one that they're going to do is at 3 o'clock where they do the speed competition. When we have this type of weather, the ice looks like crystal. It's actually pretty fantastic once they're done. We're also going to be having a chili cook-off. There's going to be an outdoor ice rink, obviously not frozen. It's synthetic ice, so you're going to be able to skate all day long. We're going to have a curling competition that's going to be happening, plus some other activities and prizes for all age groups, but that's this Saturday from 11 to 7. Hopefully next year, we get a couple feet of snow.
Well, he might be the only one in the room hoping for that, but it would add to the event for sure. We want to, thank you, Ken. So we also want to remind the public that the importance of stopping for school buses when you see their red lights and the stop sign extended, flashing. We've had a number of incidents over the years of a lack of compliance there, and it's important to point out that the schools have now gone to, in order to alleviate some of that going forward, they've installed cameras on all school buses. So just in the last week and a half, we've received 11 complaints for bus drivers that we're following up on. Some of those have or will result in citations. So it's an extra incentive, but the main one being to keep our kids safe. So remind our drivers out there, both experienced and young drivers, to obey the rules and familiarize yourself with the rules, because that tends to be part of the problem, and unfamiliarity with when to stop and when to go.
Mr. President, just quick question. What's the fine for that? Is there, do you know what the?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay, minor misdemeanor, okay, thank you.
And then finally, we have some new businesses that we want to welcome to our community. Mr. Hero is now doing business at 8895 Menor Avenue. Ann Kate is at 8500 Station Street. AIM Performance Training at 7266 Commerce Drive. My Kids Childcare at 9423 Menor Avenue. The Posh Pet at 7361 Center Street. And CRJ Provider Services at 7575 Tyler Boulevard. So we thank them for their investment and wish them great success. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk's correspondence.
Council is in receipt of Menor Municipal Court month-end report for January 2019. Also in receipt of a liquor permit transfer from Proper Pig Smokehouse LLC to Irwin Adams Inc., DBA Maki and Patio at 9582 Diamond Center Drive, and another liquor permit transfer for Gruen Enterprises, DBA Avenue Beverage to Ami and Yogi Inc., DBA Avenue Beverages.
Commission and committee reports. We have in receipt of the minutes for the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals of November 13th, 2018, the Charter Review Committee, January 17th, 2019, and January 31st of 2019, and the Tree Commission for January 16th, 2019. Old business. We have a pavement cut from Dominion Energy.
Yes, I had a comment
Mr. Lanning?
on that. I believe Mr. Marne in the last meeting did ask the city to review their policy. And what we have is a request for anodes to be placed on East Ohio Gas line. It's a maintenance request. And we're up against our own maintenance that we had done recently on that road. So along with Dave and I have talked about it a little bit, I'd like to see a recognition of more restrictive policy on pavement cuts for new streets. The newer the street, the more restrictive it should be. And likewise, we have our PCRs now, so there's no secret as to which of our roads are the oldest and newest relative to pavement conditions. And if our utility permit coordinator, I think it would be great if he was proactive with Aqua America, Dominion East Ohio, maybe even First Energy, they have some underground stuff, and send it to them, and the coordination that could be done on things that timely can be moved to when, prior to a road, like the road list we just approved tonight, is approved for new resurfacing, that would be a win-win for the coordination part of these utility cuts.
We don't disagree with that, Councilman. We have always done a very aggressive job, in my opinion, of trying to coordinate capital improvement projects with respect to our resurfacing list. So we routinely put roads off for resurfacing or other improvements when we know that a utility plans on making some new investment. They haven't always been perfect with that, I can tell you. But on maintenance, it's been a case-by-case basis, hasn't it?
It has. We do share our capital plan with all the utilities and our road resurfacing program. And at times, it has been difficult to get full compliance as far as trying to avoid impacting a recently resurfaced roadway. One of the challenges has been is our road program, although we get PCRs, and we really don't, we develop it annually. Sometimes the utilities do the same thing, so sometimes we could end up in the same place. We do our best to try to avoid that. At times, utilities have worked with us to postpone projects. We've worked with them to coordinate our projects, but we do put forth quite an effort to avoid conflicts in open cuts shortly after we repave a roadway. The anode work or the cathodic protection type work is one that we do want to get a little bit more information. It is a program that the gas company has done, for many, many years. Most of their work is outside the limits of pavement. We're going to be meeting with them in the short term, and they plan to make themselves available to come to the next meeting to kind of explain themselves a little bit as to why this specific project or this maintenance work is being done this way. But we do put forth a lot of effort to try to avoid this type of these types of pavement cuts soon after we surface streets.
It is unfortunate.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I could ask something under old business. Ken, do we have a date scheduled for the dedication of Springbrook Gardens Park? We had decided to put that off until spring, and good thing spring's 29 days away.
Yeah,
So I thought I'd bring that up and see if we could get that on our calendar.
We haven't selected a date yet, but we'd certainly like to work with you and the rest of council on that. There's some completion work that has to be done out there, including top course for a lot of the paths and the parking lots out there. So at this stage, because the plants haven't opened yet, it's probably to everyone's advantage to wait until that's done and then make a little bit bigger splash.
And get
But
the
we'll work
paths
with
all
you on a
done
date,
and
on a
the
grand
parking-
opening. Yes.
Parking will be finalized. Okay, so are you thinking late April, roughly?
April, early May.
Late April, early May.
because I'll be out of town the second week of May, and I just don't want to miss that.
That's when we're doing it.
Okay,
If you do it late April.
All right, got to go back to the open cut. I need a,
I move to approve the pavement open cut.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Forgot about that.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Just clarification, is the old Johnny Cake Road cut?
Yes.
No.
Finney Ridge Road. Okay,
Mr. President?
Yes,
if
Mr. Mayor.
If I could add, we weren't intending to ask you to adopt this tonight, so until we get reasonable justification, which may include them coming to council, they've offered to come to council, actually, and talk about some of their maintenance methods and why some of these things,
remove the motion.
if council's interested in that. But I think, but having adopted it, we won't act on your authorization until such time as we're satisfied that there isn't another alternative, unless you want to pull that back. And so-
All right, I believe that's okay with council. All right, thank you. New business. We have an appointment to the Charter Review Committee.
Mr. President, I move to appoint Clyde Haddon.
I second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
The reason we're doing this, one of the appointments determined that they could not attend the meetings any longer, so we had to appoint a replacement for that individual.
Never sworn in.
Yeah, the person we're replacing was never sworn in, so Clyde Haddon will be sworn in, and everything will be fine in the world. Under new business, I want to add the same thing for
I thought you.
for Scott Marnes achieving the 50th birthday, half a century of work here in the city. I also want to congratulate Chief Knight and his patrolman Kevin Hatch for his fine, outstanding work in the life-saving event of a woman over in Bay Village. Through his diligence, he found the woman, notified the authorities over there, and the person was taken to the hospital and recovered. Good job. Mr. Landy?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I got a text from a resident on the weekend, and usually when I get a text from a resident on the weekend, I can't respond with a thumbs up, but this one I could. This is a resident who lives on one of the Indian streets right on Two-Town Ditch. And here's the text. Wow, the creek has been doing well during big rains. Like last week, that was a lot of water and it didn't even get halfway up. It flows faster. I'm so impressed and relieved. Please tell engineers of Mentor our review so far. So we can't claim mission complete yet. The rains, the intensity will be here in the spring and summer, but that is a really good response to hear somebody that watches it all the time, usually out of nervousness and sometimes fear. And so both the Bellflower Detention Pond upstream and then the Willoughby rechannelization downstream have really done what they're supposed to do. So thank you to everybody, council, engineering, city administration. Thank you.
Council, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second?